Good morning, everyone. Bon dia, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Jason Marzak, Director of the Atlantic Council's Adrian Arch Latin America Center. I'm delighted to welcome you to today's conversation with Brazil's Governor of Rio Grande do Sul, Eduardo Leite, directly from our studios in Washington, D.C. Governor, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the Atlantic Council, and happy birthday. Parabéns. Before I introduce Governor Leite, I'd like to first set the context for the importance of today's conversation. As we know, 2022 is a highly consequential year for Brazilian democracy, with presidential, congressional, and state-level elections taking place in October. These elections will happen as Brazil irons out its socioeconomic trajectory following what we hope are the worst days of the pandemic, and amid a backdrop of political polarization and disinformation alongside the continued reverberations of war in Europe. Democracy, its principles, and its benefits to citizens have been increasingly questioned in the last few years around the world, in Latin America and the Caribbean, and in Brazil. Given the important role of Brazilian states in the country's overall governance, it is particularly important to hear Governor Leite's state-level perspective around Brazil's economic recovery, its role on the global stage, and its political future. Rio Grande do Sul and other states have played an increasingly prominent role in managing the COVID pandemic, with their joint work potentially being ripe to be replicated for solving other major issues in Brazil. As Governor Leite continues his visit throughout the United States, what are areas of common ground for the U.S. and Brazil to deepen ties at the state level? Governor Leite was elected in 2018 as Brazil's youngest governor and leads the southernmost state of Rio Grande do Sul. During his term, the governor has successfully managed the coronavirus pandemic while also balancing the state budget. Among other priorities, he is focused on privatization of state enterprises and the improvement of public services. Governor Leite, we look forward to hearing from you on the path ahead for Rio Grande do Sul and Brazil more broadly. And given your political trajectory, we also look forward to your thoughts, of course, around this year's presidential election. I will now turn over to Valentina Seder, Associate Director and Brazil Lead at the Adrian Arch Latin America Center, to moderate this timely conversation. Valentina?
Thank you, Jason. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Governor Leite. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. I did want to say to the audience that if you are connecting and listening to this conversation virtually, please make sure to also follow us on Twitter at ACLATAM and follow the conversation with the hashtag ACBrazil. Governor Leite, I know we all want to hear from you, so I will jump right in. I wanted to start talking about the state of Rio Grande do Sul and the COVID-19 pandemic. You know, Brazil, we all know that Brazil has been one of the worst affected countries by the COVID-19 pandemic, with over 650,000 deaths since the beginning of it. Brazil now has been able to vaccinate over 73% of its population. And in great part, it's because of the joint effort of governors and mayors, governors including yourself, to make sure that we get to this vaccination rate and management of the pandemic overall. Governor Leite, I wanted to ask you, in what ways has collaboration among states allowed for this kind of scenario? And also, what are some best practices that this joint effort can bring to us in thinking about how we can have this kind of effort happen for solutions to other problems that Brazil might be facing, such as poverty, such as inequality, as well as the environment as a whole?
Well, first of all, thank you, Valentina. Thank you, Jason. Where is he? Here,
Back
Jason.
over there.
Thank you for having us here in Atlantic Council. It's an honor to be here with you. Well, for your question, answering your question, what we had in Brazil, actually, we have to admit, is a lack of coordination in the national level. But well, it was an opportunity for having this coordination among us in the state level. It gave us an opportunity. Of course, the best would be to have the coordination at the national level, but it has put us with this commitment to arrange between ourselves our efforts to deal with the pandemic. First, before the vaccination, with the best practices to avoid contamination. Of course, we were all learning all over the world how to deal with the pandemic. So not only scientific conditions should be on spot, but also the political conditions to manage with the society, how to explain people what was going on, and or try to explain, because nobody could say peremptorily what was going on. And I think that it brought us a strong collaboration between this subnational level, because we are a federation also in Brazil, and then, but different from United States, we have, in the United States you had the states becoming united to create a nation, and there we had a unitary country that made states for better arranging its political conditions. So we still have this great power in the center, in the federal level. What this lack of coordination at the national level gave was a stronger sense of cooperation between the states. So we had in Rio Grande do Sul, what I can say is a successful way to deal with the pandemic. We have created a system of various index that were brought to us to understand what were the conditions each week, so we could better arrange the social distancing in the state and in the regions of the state. Then other states have adopted the same system that we have created there in Rio Grande do Sul, and we now have a situation very near from what we are seeing here in the United States, dropping the hospitalizations and also the contamination for the COVID.
Exactly, and with that in mind, thinking about that hopefully the worst of the pandemic is behind us, I wanted to look ahead and thinking about the COVID-19 implications to especially the economy and to social conditions in Brazil. And thinking about Rio Grande do Sul in particular, what are some steps that you have been taking at the state level to ensure that these inequalities and these troubles with the economy overall have been addressed, and what are some things that we can take from the state level and could be implemented at the national level as well?
Well, such as Jason has anticipated, beyond the pandemic, or beside the pandemic, we had to deal with fiscal unbalanced budget, or fiscal crisis in our state, and also a problem with the drought. We have a strong agriculture in our state, so there were many crises together for us, and we have dealt with it in a way so we could reach here with conditions to invest. We have made reforms, we are going to talk about it, but now the state has condition to invest that we hadn't before. So we have created some programs to try to recover from the effects from the pandemic. For example, of course, we will still going to see a problem, for example, in education, where kids were away from school. They were having classes from home virtually, but many children don't have access to the instruments, to
the tools.
To the tools for it, such as a phone, a smartphone, or a computer, and we have also the problem of not having contact between those children. So there is a social interaction problem here for them. We hang children that were supposed to be in the high school, and the vulnerable families, they receive a payment from the government, so we can ensure that those kids are in school, because there are a need from these families for paying food for them. So there are many young students that were leaving school for helping to their families. We have also created the conditions so we could reduce our taxes, so we can help economy to be brought
back to speed.
Yes, and of course, the world is still passing through the effects, the economic effects for what the pandemic brought to us. For example, like inflation. Mm-hmm. So what we are seeing right now in Brazil is the raise of the interest rates, what it's affecting our economy, and of course, this inflation is taking the economic situation of the families in the worst way. And I know it is not only a Brazilian problem, but of course we have domestic problems that must be addressed also, so we can have a better recovery for our economy in Brazil. And of course it's a challenge for the federal level, but also at the state level we have some contributions that must be done, and I think we are having it in Rio Grande do Sul.
Governor Leite, you mentioned Rio Grande do Sul being a big exporter of agricultural products, and I wanted to ask you a question about this because Rio Grande do Sul is a top exporter of soybeans in particular in Brazil, and has like you mentioned, a strong agribusiness sector. But among other sectors, Brazilian agribusiness will be greatly impacted by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So how do you anticipate this conflict actually impacting Rio Grande do Sul in particular, and then Brazil overall?
There's one of the reasons that I'm in United States talking to investors and with banks. Everybody's trying to understand how is it going to accommodate this situation economically. Of course, the first priority is how can we all in the world help to end war, mm-hmm. and because of the lives that are are being affected now in Ukraine. But of course we have to see also what the impact that we have in our populations. And Brazil is an importer of fertilizers, for example. We produce fertilizers, but importing items from abroad, such as ammonia, for example, mm-hmm. and it will impact, or it is already impacting our production, raising the price of these fertilizers will for certainly impact our production, but also, well, it may give this new order that must come, maybe some opportunities for the country to be exported for its products also.
So thinking about this more positive notion of this, Governor Leite, you mentioned you are in the United States, you are in Washington, D.C. right now, you just came from New York and you're headed to Texas. Brazil and the United States are strategic partners, and they have always been. But what are some key areas of collaboration between the U.S. and Rio Grande do Sul in particular, but also Brazil overall, that you were hoping to deepen with your trip?
Okay, so, well, first of all, we share common values. I think that is very important nowadays to emphasize. Yes. In these days where we are seeing democracy being attacked, our way of living, we have to emphasize that, and these common values makes us even stronger in our relationship, and this relationship is with American companies that are there in our state. We have there General Motors, John Deere, and other, of course, many other American companies, and we have the gauchos companies, such as we call ourselves, the gauchos, from people from Rio Grande do Sul, companies that are here in the United States, yes. There is Gerdau, there is a steel company that is strong here also, and we have Tramontina, there's a cutlery company. We have here Marco Polo that produces buses. We have many Brazilian and Rio Grande do Sul companies that are here already. What we want to make is stronger is our cooperation for innovation and technology. I had some meetings here to bring for a great event that we will have in Rio Grande do Sul that is called South Summit, an innovation event that we will have there in next May, from May the 5th to May the 7th, and where we want to have our startups, the academy, investment funds, all together. It's an event that has been realized in Madrid, in Spain, and we brought it to Latin American edition in Porto Alegre, our state capital. And I had some meetings here, very important also in the production of energy, because our state is a state that has a strong capacity for generating eolic energy. And we also have an opportunity for the production of green hydrogen that must be on spot on the next years, and we have this opportunity for investments there also, so I'm having some meetings also in this sector.
That sounds wonderful. And besides opportunities for collaboration on the innovation sector, there are definitely opportunities to explore deepened trade and investment relations between Brazil and the United States. And on this topic, I would like to welcome Abreu Neto, the Executive Vice President of AmCham Brazil and non-resident senior fellow here at the Atlantic Council, the Adrian Arch Latin America Center, who has a question for you, Governor Leite, and is connecting all the way from São Paulo. Hello, Abreu.
Hello, Valentina. Thank you. Good morning, Governor. Well, I would like to pose a question on the economic front. So if we travel back in time to the post-election period in 2018, we would hear from the business sector in Brazil that one of the most pressing demands and higher expectations were around the reforms to modernize the Brazilian economy. And looking at what we have accomplished until now at the federal level, we have the pension reform, the autonomy of the central bank, the framework on sanitation, and so on. But we have missed the opportunity to approve comprehensive tax and administrative reforms. On the other hand, in your state of Rio Grande do Sul, you have managed to pass some of those reforms, including on pension, on state taxes, and public service. So looking ahead, what do you think are the main economic challenges the next president of Brazil will face, and what it takes to successfully conclude such complex reforms at the federal level? Of course, taking advantage of the experience you just had in Rio Grande do Sul. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abrão. Well, Abrão and Valentina, what I will first emphasize is that when we talk about reforms, it seems like we can handle with reforms, having a new structure in there, we will be without the needing of any other reforms. And that isn't true, because the way life is changing so fast and so deep because of technology, because the new way that people have their relations, economically speaking, it will always put us in need of constantly having these reforms. But Brazil has a situation that is even put us in the deepest need of reforms, because we have a government that it is expensive to the people, and what brings us the need of revenues for the public sector, and that goes in a complex tax systems that is almost irrational, that we have there. So we need these administrative reform to reduce our public costs in the public machine, and we need the tax reform to make it rational for having a better condition of productiveness and competitiveness of the country. Well, to build that, we need a political condition that has not been handled in Brazil. Actually, we are passing through hard moments for democracies all around the world. It is not different in Brazil, but of course in a country where we have a deep difference in economy between the families, we have this abysm, social abysm, populism from right or left becomes even stronger. And what we saw there in 2018, Abrão brought the electoral conditions from that election. We had an election where people was so worried about the political conditions in Brazil that maybe they went against politics on their decisions. Bolsonaro was not an obvious candidate for that election, and he was elected in that specific conditions that we had there because of the car wash operation, what brought us to this political condition. And he didn't work to have a solid, he had a solid majority in the beginning, but he didn't work to keep that. And I think that he didn't have the would be conviction, would be the
willpower.
Yeah, the willpower for this agenda in Brazil. But I truly believe, I am optimistic. Well, I'm a politician. Being in politics makes us needing to be optimistic that people, or at least our leaders, are aware that the tax system reform and the administrative reforms must be a priority for the next years. Brazil has passed through the last decade in a period where we had recession in 2015, 2016, the deepest recession in our history. Then the country has grown something around 1% per year, what is a shy condition for economic growth. And then we had the pandemic, and this year the projections are for stagnation. So we need, once we don't have a more, or we will not have more an economic growth or a bonus demographic for the next decade, or in the next decade we're going to lose this bonus, demographic bonus. We have to improve our competitiveness and productiveness through a better condition to grow. What a tax system reform will be very important. And in the other hand, we have to work hard in education, I would say, to have the better, to improve our human resources to this new economy that is being created through technology and innovation.
Going into this segue of talking a little bit about politics then, this is an election year. And what we've been talking already, Governor Leite, state governors and mayors gained a more prominent voice throughout the pandemic. And this is something that made state governors and mayors also have a voice at national politics as well. And as this is a election year, what roles can states play at the national level, domestically as well as in foreign affairs?
Well, it is an election year in the state level and the national level. So governors must be demanded for this, for their elections, their own elections, being
Absolutely.
candidates or having their candidates to their succession. So, of course, it will demand, they will be demanded by the political environment in their own states. But what we are facing to this election is a polarization right now. And what has been talked about, this polarization is very hard to break it out, but I would say that we have to see what the polls are saying, not only for the intentions of votes that are being shown to each candidate, Lula and Bolsonaro, but also the rejection that they have. And the rejection that they have gives impulse to the other candidates. So those that reject Bolsonaro are at this moment seeing Lula as an antagonist to Bolsonaro. So maybe not a little part, but I would say a big part of the votes that are being seen for, and intentions of votes are being seen for Lula are more about rejecting Bolsonaro than wanting Lula back. And I would say the same thing for Bolsonaro against Lula. So the antagonist for Lula, for the people at this right moment, is Bolsonaro. But they still don't know who are going to be the other players. So I think there is a path where we can break out this polarization and say, well, I'm working personally for this. What my position is to have an alternative for this election, so we can bring an alternative, so the country can have a more peaceful political environment, I would say. And like I was saying, the state level is going to have their own discussions.
That's the perfect segue into my next question, because it was actually about the elections shaping up to be very polarizing. And as you mentioned, this was actually something that already happened in the 2018 elections, that the votings were going for the rejections as well, and we were seeing that kind of move. In the scenario nowadays, in what we are seeing nowadays with this polarization between Bolsonaro and Lula in particular, do you still believe, and you mentioned this a little bit, but do you believe there's still space for an alliance of the center that would have a third-way candidate, and that candidate is a viable candidacy for the presidential elections? And if so, what challenges would that candidate have in dealing with the situation, in trying to get elected in Brazil in October?
Well, for sure there is a space, I would say. Because what I'm seeing in these election conditions that we have is that there is not a willing of Lula back, and I wouldn't say there is truly willing of having Bolsonaro for more years, but part of the people is voting against or planning to vote against one or another. What we have to create is a condition where we can show people in Brazil that is not about discussing about the past or the present, is about discussing about the future. And we are in a lack of a candidate talking about the future right now. Is there a space for getting the center all together? Well, I wouldn't say that we will be able to have all the candidates that are now running for this space as a center candidate. But I truly believe that we will have this number of candidates reduced until July, when we will have the moment of decision of the candidacies. And I always say that we have to look for a candidate with three abilities, capacities. The management capacity, to handle with a government. You need to be a good manager of a government. The political condition, the political ability is for certain very important to deal with the Congress, the press, the society that is being mobilized by the social media. And the first condition, the first ability is the electoral capacity. And this electoral capacity isn't about only the personal capacity of the candidate. It is about the environment, what the people are demanding, what people are expecting, and what I think we will need is these political parties. You know, Brazil, we have a fragmentation of our political system in several parties. So most of them are thinking more about how they can have in this election more seats to be occupied in the Congress. So how will them elect more congressmen and congresswomen? How will they win those important states? Then looking to the national level, and how can they contribute to elect someone different from Lula or Bolsonaro? So this is one of the main problems to get this unity for the center in Brazil. But I think when we'll get there to June, maybe things were going to be more pushing for this unity.
So in terms of overcoming these electoral possibilities and challenges, do you believe that the main challenge for this third way candidate, or even to President Bolsonaro and former President Lula, if elected presidents, would be governing and governance?
Yes, well, Brazil is a not easy country to be governed. When you look to the United States, where you have a bipartisan system, it is not easy. We are discussing right now an expectation about midterm elections, and we know how it can determine how will be the next 2 years for Biden's administration. When you look to Brazil, you have to understand that we have this federation, we have the same separation of roles that have the executive, the judiciary, the control system that we have that is strong. And one of these institutions, the legislative, the power, is fragmented in almost 30 political parties. So it's very hard to deal with that. The capacity of governing Brazil is determined by the capacity of the president. The one that will be elected must have this capacity to bring a majority in the National Congress, but not only in the National Congress, but to getting our people together again, not fighting one against another, not trying to deconstruct or distract other positions, but to construct something new, looking more to the future than to the past. I would say that it is harder for Bolsonaro and Lula to do it because of what they bring with them from the past. I think that it will be much better for the country to have a new leadership. I'm not saying that it needs to be me. There are some people that supports me for getting this role. But what I'm trying to say is that important that we can end this chapter of fighting. What we have, of course, Bolsonaro has reached a position of leadership with his supporters, but it was pushed by an anti or PT, or the Against Workers' Party feeling for a part of the population. And so what we have right now is those that are pro-Lula, those that are against Lula, and those that are against Lula was captured by Bolsonaro. And I think we have to end this chapter in Brazil and to start constructing a new political relationship more focused on debating the problems than debating the people or the persons.
Of course, and since you mentioned it, I think this is the question that we are all hoping to ask you, is Governor Leite, you have mentioned in the past that you will not be running for re-election in Rio Grande do Sul, so you would not be running to become governor again. You ran in the primaries of the Brazilian Social Democracy Party, PSDB, to be their presidential candidate, and there is speculation over you becoming the Social Democratic Party's PSD presidential candidate. What will be your next steps? Can we expect to see Eduardo Leite as vice president or as president in October and beyond?
Well, like I was saying, I think we have to contribute to create an alternative for the country. There are many people that think that I might contribute as a candidate for this election. Maybe because of what we did in Rio Grande do Sul, maybe because being a young politician, we should be better able to show people this path to the future, despite discussing the past or the bad president, the bad present that we have. I ran in the primaries for my party. I had 45% of votes. But I was running against the governor of the state of São Paulo, that is 4 times the population of Rio Grande do Sul, much more exposed to the media. But what some polls have shown recently is that I have even a better position than him for the elections. I respect him, I respect the party's decision, but what is being shown is that we might have a better condition to discuss this alternative with the people. So yes, I am discussing a possibility of a candidacy, but of course it shall not be a personal decision. A candidacy for president must have more leaders and a condition to be supported, and we are in the next few weeks discussing this, even because the electoral legislation in Brazil demands that I renounce my term as governor until the end of this month of March. So we are in a hurry for that, and what is important to say is that just to clarify for those that are with us right now, my position against re-election, it is because of this fragmentation of political parties that we have in Brazil, that I would say gives us a political environment of less cooperation to approve the reforms. For example, Abraham was saying here, how can we deal with the reforms that are needed for the country, like we did in Rio Grande do Sul? And I'm not afraid of saying that this position about re-election was very important to create a better political environment in our state. And why I say that is that if I would there 2 years ago a virtually candidate for re-election, maybe some of the political parties that have important seats in the state Congress wouldn't contribute as they did because they want to be protagonists on these elections. So if they would see that approving some reforms would give us a strong position for the elections, maybe they wouldn't contribute politically to approve that reforms as they did. And that is why I will work to keep this promise of not being candidated for re-election. Well, and that brings me to the discussion for the national campaign. I don't have this answer until now, but for certain when I will be back to Brazil will be on the top priorities of my agenda to discuss with those that have supported me as a candidate in the primaries for my party. When we run for a position like this, in the primaries that we had in our political party, the PSDB, the Social Democracy Party, Brazilian Social Democracy Party. Of course, we create a group, and I have to discuss with them what shall be our next step. Are we going to do it together? Who is going together if we have this next step? So this is going to be a priority for me when I will be back to Brazil. And of course, it is happening right now through WhatsApp and through...
and these questions here pushing you as well.
Yes, well, all the time, but it is.
No, so we'll wait then to hear from you and see your decision in the coming days or weeks.
I can just ensure that I won't work to divide even more this center, the position, the political center of these candidacies that we have. I will only take a step in if I see that I have a condition to contribute, trying to bring unity or the most unity that we can reach in this electoral campaign that we will have. I will not go into an election like this just by vanity or something other that could push us in. But well, let us see what life is going to bring us.
Let's see then. We are almost out of time, so I wanted to ask one final question for us to wrap up. And in advance, I already apologize for announcing your age, but today
no problem.
you are only 36, turning 37 today.
Yes.
So happy birthday!
During the night, because I was born in the night.
Oh, so not yet. So
not
you're
yet.
still 36. There you go. But you already have a long career in government, and this is something to look to, aspire to. You were elected governor of Rio Grande do Sul when you were only 33, becoming the youngest elected governor in Brazil. And recently, you also came out as the country's first publicly gay governor. In a consequential election year that we have this year, I would like to end this conversation in a positive and future-looking note. What is one lesson you would like to share with the next generation of political leaders in Brazil and the world?
Well, when I came out as a gay last year, I wanted to give a contribution in the position that I am, to show people that is about respect, tolerance, to know that each person is different from another, and we have to respect these differences and to understand that those differences makes us stronger as people, as a population, a society. Having a woman, and we had this week the International Women's Day, Women Day, so having a woman, a gay politician, having black people in the group, having indigenous, having older people and younger, all the context where these people come from, bring to a group a variety of point of views that helps building something better for all the society. Then at the other side, if you had only white men at a certain middle age, with their own context of life. So it is important to respect and to bring those differences together. And it is important for us to, when we are in a position of leadership, to help pushing on this way, this correct path. So we are passing through this moment, and I think we will keep for many years passing through a hard moment where we have, like I was saying, democracy being attacked, institutions being attacked because of what is life is changing so fast, and this brings anxiety for society, and people start searching for whom are then blaming for this anxiety. So we have in countries like the United States or in Europe, we have people against immigrants, for example, trying to put the blame on them, like they would be the culpados,
The guilty
the
ones.
guilty ones for the problems that we have, when actually what we have is that technology is taking jobs, and it is a non-return path that we have taken as a generation, and so we have to bring through education people to the new jobs that are being created, and not so. But we are living in this anxiety environment, and so what I want to contribute is, well, as people want me to be a leader, I will be there helping to bring in this path with dialogue, with respect, to create better conditions for everyone in my place, like I think I was able to do in my city, in my state, and I hope that I can help also in the national level until people think that I am someone that has a contribution to do. That is what I think I am up to.
Thank you, Governor Leite. This is an inspiring conversation, and I would like to thank you for this insightful thoughts and reflections today. We will continue to follow and analyze the development of this critical moment in Brazil, and I would like to thank you all for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and happy birthday again.
Thank you.